and welcome to another episode of Learning Across Kansas, the show where Kansas educators take you on a learning adventure across the Sunflower State. I'm your host, Mrs. Smoke, and I'm excited to join you in this journey. Learning Across Kansas is a partnership between the Kansas State Department of Education and the Kansas Public Broadcasting Service. Together, we hope to ensure your learning continues while we deal with the physical distancing and health issues facing our state and country. Most of all, we want to give you an opportunity to look at the world with curiosity and wonder. Opportunities to learn are all around us if we just use a little imagination and creativity as our guides. Most of all, we want to see what inspires you. So let's get started. In today's show, we're heading to the great outdoors to explore one of my favorite things, the weather. Without a doubt, the weather is a constant source of amazement, amusement, and wonder. It's inspired meteorologists to use science and math to understand and predict the weather and climate. Authors use weather to set the mood, mirror a character's attitude, or strengthen a scene's emotional impact. And let's not forget that weather can be a source of fun too, from jumping in puddles on a rainy day to taking a bike ride on a bright and sunny afternoon. The weather is just fascinating. Our weather investigations begin with Mrs. Hillman in Olathe as she explores the science of clouds and precipitation. Then we'll talk probability and weather forecasting with Mrs. Bowden in Andover. Later, we'll be exploring the history of rainbows with Mrs. Farha in Wichita and discussing self-care with both Counselor Schrader in Maret and Coach Martinez in Dodge City. Finally, we'll explore how authors use weather to set the mood or create an original piece of poetry. We've got a lot to do, so let's get started. Grab your notebook, friends. Our journey begins with Mrs. Hillman in Olathe and Mrs. Bowden in Wichita. Ooh, let's go!
Water, water everywhere, nor any drop to drink. Or is there? Today, we are studying weather. Weather is all around us. Today, in science, we're going to talk about clouds, how to create a cloud. Where do they come from and what can they tell us? Let's visit the water cycle to remind ourselves how water has recycled since prehistoric times to today. And those are what our clouds are even made of. Let's go.
A cloud is made up of liquid water droplets. A cloud forms when air is heated by the sun. It rises, it slowly cools, it reaches the saturation point, and water condenses, forming a cloud. As long as the cloud and the air that it's made of is warmer than the outside air around it, it floats. The water cycle describes how water evaporates from the surface of the earth, rises into the atmosphere, cools and condenses into rain or snow in clouds, and falls again to the surface as precipitation.
There are 30 plus names for the clouds in our sky. I want us to focus on 5 names today. Many of those other 30 have to do with these 5. Now, you also need to know there are 3 different levels of clouds. The lower levels, that's right, mid and upper or high level. On the low level, this is where we see stratus clouds. Those are the ones that are long and blanket-like. It looks like they lay across the sky, and they usually hold most of precipitation. Then you have above those, that's right, alto, the tall ones. In that space, those are going to be somewhat of the connected type of clouds. Above them, cirrus clouds, some of my favorite. They're gorgeous, usually made of ice crystals, and they're wispy, and they're so far up. Then we have the puffy cotton ball clouds called cumulus. Those are the ones we can see unicorns in. And finally, my favorite, cumulonimbus. Well, they shouldn't be my favorite, but those are massive storm clouds that are dark in color, and they actually go through all 3 levels. High pressure, low pressure. High pressure, very few clouds in the sky. High pressure, happy, happy, happy. Low pressure, lousy weather. So many more clouds in the sky. Precipitation on the way. Let's do a lab that helps us anchor to remember that information. High pressure, low pressure. This lab, this quick lab, will allow us to remember high pressure versus low pressure. High, happy, happy weather. Low, lousy weather. We have a piece of paper towel, we have a lighter, and we also have a clear bottle with a little bit of water. Something I will tell you, goggles always and never ever flames if parents aren't with you at the time. We're gonna go ahead and we're gonna take this bottle, lube up the sides, and that means we're getting water throughout the bottle. Now, just like we talked about what makes a cloud, we're gonna make a cloud in this bottle, and it's going to allow us to determine whether it's high pressure or low pressure. Here we go. There we go. And we're gonna put this inside the bottle, and we're gonna close it up top. And we're gonna go ahead and start working this bottle. Now, as we're working this bottle, we're creating high pressure and low pressure. Remember what makes a cloud. Here we go. When I squeeze, it's high pressure. High pressure, I can see you. Low pressure, there's the cloud. High pressure, I can see you. Low pressure, there's that cloud. So scholars, here's our challenge for the week. I want you, each day of this week, to go outside, and I want you to document the weather. Let's get some data in our journal. Sunday through Saturday, you bet, the time, temperature, coverage, that's right, the coverage of those clouds in the sky. Was it a high or low pressure? What types of clouds did you see? And all those extra notice notes, those little things from the birds chirping all the way to if it's windy or there's flowers on the ground. Kansas scientists, clouds are everywhere. Make sure that you take time to notice and wonder. Use your journal this week. Weather and science are everywhere. Until next week.
Hey parents, you're doing great! With Kansas school buildings closed and homes being turned into classrooms, parents and caregivers have expanded their roles in their students' learning. This is a new experience for most of us, so let's show one another a little grace. When you and your students start to feel overwhelmed or stressed, take a break. It's really okay. Keeping students interested and engaged in learning is the key to success. Remember, you have an entire community of fellow caregivers and teachers to lean on. Reach out. Together, Kansans can.
Hey everybody, Mrs. Bowden here from Andover, Kansas. Kansas is known for its quick weather changes. So how do weather forecasters communicate about these changes? Well, they use probability to describe a weather forecast level of certainty. Today we will take a look at a forecast. But before we do that, what is probability? Probability measures the likelihood that an event will occur. We measure it numerically from 0 to 1. Here we have a scale that helps us relate likelihood and probabilities of an event happening. If I were to say there's a 90% chance of a tornado today, we can measure the probability by stating the percent, the decimal, or we can also use words. We can describe it somewhere between likely and certain, so we can use descriptions such as very likely or almost certain. Let's give you a chance to practice. Here we're going to check in with a good friend of mine, Miss Probability Patty, for our weather this week.
Howdy friends, Miss Probability Patty here to show you the forecast for the week. I want you to describe the likelihood that each event will occur by using the scale that Mrs. Bowden just gave us. Let's go! 100% chance of puddles and raindrops. It could be a little breezy today. 50% chance of high winds. Nobody could have predicted this today. 20% chance of snow flurries. Not a great day for a picnic. 90% chance of high winds. 75% chance of sunshine, shades, and lemonade.
Seen a forecast done like that before. Anyways, how did you do? My challenge for you in your notebook is to look at your forecast in your local area and use probability to measure the likelihood or uncertainty of that event happening. See what weather patterns you notice through the weeks to come. Back to you, Mrs. Smoke.
Isn't the weather fascinating? Not only does it change daily, but it's been the source of inspiration for many authors, artists, and musicians. Just think about all the different songs there are about rainbows, including my favorite song, The Rainbow Connection, sung by Kermit the Frog. Now, let's listen and visit with Mrs. Farha as she shares a bit of science and history surrounding rainbows. Then we'll explore self-care strategies with Counselor Schrader and Coach Martinez. Take it away, friends.
Elvis Presley, Sia, the Rolling Stones, Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz. Why are there so many songs about rainbows? Let's explore the history of this weather mystery. Rainbow comes from the Latin arcus pluvius, meaning rainy arch. In Greek and Roman times, it was believed that rainbows were a path created by the goddess of the rainbow, Iris, linking us to the immortals. The Greek poet Homer believed that rainbows were made of a single color, purple, while Aristotle added two more. During the Renaissance, they believed there were 4 colors. In the 17th century, they went to 5. In 1666, Isaac Newton added indigo and orange to give us the 7-colored Roy G. Biv that we know today. Newton showed that white light was being refracted or split apart into colors. Rainbows can occur anywhere where light meets water in the sky, with the person seeing the rainbow in between. The world's longest observed rainbow was seen for 6 hours in England in 1994. Rainbows are actually circular, but that's hard to see from Earth. Grab an airplane and you might just find that pot of gold.
Hey guys, today I want to talk about self-care. Self-care is any activity that we do intentionally in order to take care of our social, emotional, and physical health. Self-care helps you stay focused, it enhances your self-esteem, and allows you to be able to care for others better. And it just makes you a happier person. If you've ever flown on an airplane, the flight attendant will say that in case of an emergency, you should put your own oxygen mask on first before you help anyone else. You can't take care of others if you aren't taking good care of yourself first. One skill that you need to make sure that you're practicing that goes right alongside of self-care is mindfulness. Mindfulness means to slow down, really notice what you're doing and how you're feeling. Now during this, you might notice that you need to take a break and practice some self-care strategies. So today, we're going to create a self-care wheel so that we have a toolbox of strategies to use when we need some self-care. For this activity, you'll need a paper plate. And if you don't have a paper plate, that's okay. Just a piece of blank paper or your journal will work just fine. So if you are using paper or your journal, you'll need to draw a big circle. And obviously, if you have a paper plate, your circle is done for you. Then divide the circle into 3 parts, making sure that you include a smaller circle in the middle. These 3 parts will represent your 3 different areas of self-care that we got from the definition: social, emotional, and physical health. In the middle of the circle, I want you to write an inspirational quote, poem, or verse that has a personal meaning. Now, you will think of different activities for each category and write them in that section.
So for example, for emotional, you might say that you're going to write a poem to express how you're feeling, or you might journal your thoughts and feelings, talk to a trusted adult. For social, you might call a friend, play a card game with your family, or write a letter to someone and ask them to write you back. And for physical, you might go for a walk, ride a bike, play a game with a friend, and for added self-care, you can do these activities outside because being outside in the sun can provide you with vitamin D, which is essential for good health. Mr. Martino will also have some great ideas for you to meet those physical self-care needs. Take care of yourself, guys.
A few ideas that you can put into practice. Try them and figure out what works best for you.
Odd Squad healthy habit number 111, how to stay away from germs. Greetings, agents, the Big O here. As you know, Odd Squad helps people all over the world. But in order to do that, agents have to stay away from germs to stay healthy. And I have some tips. Tip 1, keep your hands away from your mouth, nose, and eyes to stop the spread of germs. Tip 2, stop germs by disinfecting. I like to use these disinfectant wipes. Wipe off things you touch most often, like doorknobs, badge phones, the button that keeps the Earth's gravitational field working, and light switches. Tip 3, when agents are sick, they should stay home. And if you do get sick, rest up and listen to your doctor. My doctor says this a lot. What's next? Remember, agents, stay strong, stay healthy, because Odd Squad needs you.
For more from Odd Squad, check out the PBS Kids video app.
Welcome back. I'm Mrs. Smoke with Learning Across Kansas. Now that we've explored a bit of weather science and self-care, let's see how weather can be an inspiration for authors. Think about one of your favorite books and how weather was used to create the ideal setting. Often, authors use weather as a way to explain how a character is feeling or to build emotion in the reader. For example, a gentle rain gives a sense of calm. The wind, a feeling of being rushed or cold, and a thunderstorm can create tension and excitement in a scary story. Speaking a bit of mystery and suspense, let's visit with Mr. Wolf in Derby as he talks about one of America's most famous poets, Edgar Allan Poe.
Edgar Allan Poe is one of my favorite poets. From my classroom in Derby, Kansas, I love to stand by my podium with my Edgar Allan Poe poster as I begin the unit on poetry. Edgar Allan Poe lived a mysterious life which probably contributed to his tumultuous and terrifying writing. My favorite of Poe's works is his poem called The Raven. So this guy in the poem, The Raven, had just lost the love of his life. And he's sitting all alone at his house when he hears a knock. And after a couple ding-dong ditches, the third time he gets up and opens the door, and a raven flies into his place. And what makes this unique is that this raven talks. Now don't get too crazy. This raven only says one word. And when the main character realizes that this bird can talk, he starts asking him some questions. So one of the questions the guy asks the bird is, will I ever get over losing the love of my life? And the bird says its most famous and only word spoken throughout the entire poem. The bird says, nevermore. The guy doesn't catch on too quickly and continues to ask the bird questions. Will I be happy again? Will I fall in love again? Will my heart be unbroken? The bird says, nevermore. Lastly, the guy says, when will you leave me alone? I'll let you guess the bird's response. You can see that the raven can be a pretty sad poem, but what I love most about this poem is how it can connect something greater to than just literature. You see, the death of Edgar Allan Poe is mysterious. Scholars all over the world studied the death of Edgar Allan Poe. They found him lying in the streets. No one knew where he came from or what had happened to him. Some think he was dying of alcoholism or maybe drugs. Others say his nemesis may have killed him. Some people think he may have died of tuberculosis. He died in Baltimore, Maryland. I always like to remind my students of a connection that some of them have to Baltimore. Sports fans, do you know of any sports team, specifically a football team, that boasts Baltimore as their home? The Baltimore Ravens. NFL plus poetry, a partner that many didn't know about. The Baltimore Ravens, Edgar Allan Poe. I challenge you to tackle a Poe piece sometime soon. The father of the detective story, the mysterious man of mayhem, the dark dude of doodling.
Ooh, I do love a thrilling bit of literature, don't you? Now it's time for our tech challenge of the week. We're challenging you to explore some weather photography. Let's visit with Mr. Gudde in Frontenac to see how we can combine weather, poetry, and math into one photo challenge.
Who has seen the wind? Neither I nor you. But when the leaves hang trembling, the wind is passing through. Who has seen the wind? Neither I nor you. But when the trees bow down their heads, the wind is passing by. Christina Rossetti. Hey guys, this is Mr. Gudde, and we are going to talk about photography today. The exposure triangle is the ISO, the shutter speed, and the aperture. Think of the shutter as a shutter on a window. The longer it is open, the more light can be exposed onto your picture. Now think of the window as the aperture. The larger the window, the more light is capable of coming in. Now ISO is the sensitivity that the light hits the sensors. We just want to make sure we have the best or the lowest ISO possible. Now let's go outside and utilize our exposure triangle. Now as we're shooting some pictures, I want to utilize the law of thirds. In other words, the tic-tac-toe method. The law of thirds is a type of composition in which an image is divided evenly into thirds, both horizontally and vertically, and the subject of the image is placed in the intersection of those dividing lines or along one of the lines itself. Quick tips. Get close to your image. Look for creative lines in your image. Think of an angle that no one has ever seen before. Now most cameras are automatic. Do you remember the poem from earlier? Let's see if you can illustrate that using photos. Until next time, be kind.
Kansas school buildings may be closed for the remainder of the academic year, but school is still in session. Keeping students engaged in the learning process during this extraordinary time is critical for their ongoing success. We salute our teachers, parents, and guardians who are committed to ensuring their students finish this year strong. We're all ready for our lives to get back to normal, but until that time, Kansas students, keep learning and keep working towards your goals. Together, Kansans can.
Who has seen the wind? I'm eager to see how you capture wind in photography this week, and I hope that you'll share your photos with us using the Learning Across Kansas hashtag. And that's our show for today. Remember, friends, investigation, discovery, and opportunity are all around us. Keep your eyes looking for those wondrous moments. They are the inspiration for innovation. We'll be back with more teachers and more lessons very soon. I've been your host, Mrs. Smoke, and you've been watching Learning Across Kansas, a partnership between the Kansas State Department of Education and the Kansas Public Broadcasting Service. Have a great day, friends.